Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Good morning, honorable members and those under the sound of my voice. In our Moments of Impact devotional segment today, I'll be sharing a Christmas message entitled, The Real Reason for the Season. The Christmas season is one of the most festive seasons of the year. It's a time when most people are jubilant and excited. It's a time when people are kind and lighthearted, loving and caring. It's a time when people come together for parties and special functions. It's a time when families come together and create memories. It's a time when we as Bahamians enjoy the cultural expressions of the greatest show on the planet, Junkanoo. While we celebrate this festive season with these activities and special events, let's not forget the real reason for the season. The real reason for the season is that a Savior named Jesus was born to save us from our sins. Matthew chapter 1, verse 21 records, "And she shall bring forth a son. Thou shalt call his name Jesus, and he shall save his people from their sins." It was because of the wretched condition of the hearts of mankind that a Savior, a Redeemer, had to come to earth to rescue humanity and bring us back to God. The birth of Jesus gives us access to eternal life. That's why John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life." So in conclusion, as you move about this Christmas season, I admonish each of you that are in here and those under the sound of my voice to find some time to pause, to reflect on what Jesus did for you. Forgive someone you have an ought against. Be a blessing to someone in need. Put a smile on someone's face. Go to a church of your choice and give God praise for his goodness towards you. Last but not least, give the gift of your heart to Jesus, because after all, he is the real reason for the season. Selah. Think and act on these things. Let us pray. Our gracious and loving Father, we thank you for sending your Son Jesus to earth to redeem us and bring us back to you. Oh Lord, we pray today that you would help us as a people not to allow the commercialization of this season to dilute the real reason for the season. Heavenly Father, today we come to you asking you to help us to reflect on your goodness. Help us to take an introspective look at our spirituality. We pray, Almighty God, that throughout this season, love will abound in our hearts. Oh Lord, rid our hearts of evil and unforgiveness and malice and anger and bitterness. We pray in the name of Jesus that your peace will prevail in our streets and that true joy will fill our homes. Touch every heart in this nation and bring them into an awareness of your presence. Now, Father, we pray for today's proceedings. We ask, Almighty God, for your wisdom. We ask for your guidance for our political leaders. We pray that you would give them sober minds and clarity of thought as they seek to create legislation to advance our nation. We pray today for your perfect will to be done. For it's in Jesus' name we pray, and all of God's people say, amen. Let us pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Glennis Hannah Martin, Alfred Sayers, Dr. Michael Darville, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Dwayne Monroe, JoBeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxley, Mario Boleg, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles Larota, Pia Glover Rowe, Lisa Ramming, Zane Lightbourne, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Marcus Rowe, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightbourne, Leslie M. Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanus Petty, Mikhail Bonnaby, Michael Pintard, James Crazy Thompson, R.M. Lewis, Shandon Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White, Kingsley Smith, Darren Pickstock.
Good morning, honorable members. Communications by the Speaker? None. Introduction and swearing in of new members? Laying of documents by ministers? Thank you, honorable member. Statement and communications by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Carmichael.
Morning, Mr. Deputy Speaker, honorable members. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I rise today to provide a communication to the Honorable House on the election of the Bahamas to regional leadership in Minerva and the Carmichael Village Development Company Limited. Mr. Deputy Speaker, just before I give my communication, I would like to just congratulate the Honorable Darren Pickstock, the member for Golden Isles. I wasn't here when he came into the House, and I was myself along with the Honorable Minister for State in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Renewal. We were out of country, so we want to congratulate him and wish him Godspeed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, today I inform this Honorable House of a significant development for the Bahamas in the field of housing and urban development, one which reflects the growing regional recognition of the policies and reforms being undertaken by this Davis-led administration. From the 3rd through the 5th of December 2025, ministers and high-level authorities of housing and urban renewal from across Latin America and the Caribbean, known as Minerva, convened in Bridgetown, Barbados for the 34th General Assembly of the Forum of Ministers and High-Level Authorities of Housing and Urban Renewal Development of Latin America and the Caribbean. This organization, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is commonly referred to as Minerva. Minerva is the principal regional body responsible for coordinating policy, sharing best practices, and advancing sustainable housing and urban development across our hemisphere. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at this assembly, the Bahamas was elected together with Mexico to serve as Vice President of Minerva, the Bahamas representing the Caribbean region and Mexico representing Latin America. The presidency for the upcoming term has been assumed by Ecuador. I have been appointed, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to serve in this vice presidential role on behalf of the government and the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am proud to note that this is the first time in our history that the Bahamas has been elected to serve on the executive of this august body, this regional body. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I must place on record my sincere thanks to the Minister of State, the Honorable Lisa Ramming, the Honorable Member for Marathon, for her tireless work in canvassing our regional counterparts and ensuring the broad support that resulted in our unanimous. I also further acknowledge the exceptional leadership of our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Reginald Sanders, the diligent work of our Acting Chief Housing Officer, Mr. Jeffrey Clark, and our Managing Director of Urban Renewal, Mr. Stephen Dean, together with the entire team at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Renewal. Their professionalism, preparation, and commitment were instrumental in securing this outcome. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this historic achievement reflects not only our national progress, but the collective work of a dedicated team, and I thank each of them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, just before I proceed any further, I would also like to indicate that the country of Jamaica elected the Bahamas, or nominated the Bahamas rather, and the delegation from Jamaica asks that I personally commend and thank the Honorable Prime Minister, the Bahamian people, for their support that we have given them during the recovery from this devastating hurricane, Melissa. We were the first country, I believe, to send tangible, real support to Jamaica, and we send the roll-on, roll-off to Lawrence Major down there. I wish to commend also the member for South and Central Landers and the team that spearheaded that effort. The team from Jamaica want the Bahamas to know how much they appreciate our support to them and continue to pray for them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me make it clear. The election to this regional body is not a personal elevation. It is a reflection of the leadership of our Prime Minister, the member for Cat Island, Ramkey, and San Salvador, and the comprehensive reforms now underway in our ministry. Colleagues from across the region noted that the Bahamas is undertaking innovative, practical, and community-focused development work in 3 core areas. First, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Urban Renewal Authority. Under this administration, urban renewal has been placed back at the center of national development, not as a slogan, but as a practical engine of community revitalization. Across New Providence and the Family Islands, derelict structures are being demolished, long abandoned neighborhoods are being restored, and public spaces are being reclaimed for community use. This program is once again doing what it was created to do: restore dignity, safety, and opportunity to our urban communities, and on a permanent basis with the creation of the Urban Renewal Authority. Secondly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Clear Hole Bill Initiative. The Caribbean, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is confronting an increasing shortage of affordable, serviceable land for housing. It is in this context that our Clear Hole Bill strategy has attracted regional attention. This initiative takes derelict, abandoned, or underutilized properties, many of which have depressed neighborhoods for decades, and converts them into new, resilient, affordable housing opportunities. I am pleased to report, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the first homes under the Clear Hole Bill initiative are nearing the construction stage, with additional sites in the design and permitting pipeline. Colleagues across the Caribbean, Mr. Deputy Speaker, also expressed interest in adopting similar programs to address their own challenges of housing decay, informal settlement growth, and land scarcity. And in this context, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they're looking at land regularization and access to secure title, something that the Honorable Prime Minister is moving ahead with. This area, Mr. Deputy Speaker, drew strong regional interest and was accelerated in this program. For too long, Mr. Deputy Speaker, thousands of Bahamians live on land without security of proper title. Under the direction of the Honorable Prime Minister, this administration has moved decisively to address these long-standing challenges. By converting possession and generational occupation into secure legal title, families gain access to financing, investment, and wealth-building opportunities previously denied to them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, these reforms, that is, urban renewal, Clear Hole Bill, and land regularization, and our broader housing expansion, have made the Bahamas a leader in practical, people-centered development. It is on this strength and this work, the work of this government, that the Bahamas was elected by unanimous support to help lead the region through Minerva. And then what are the responsibilities then going forward, Mr. Deputy Chairman? As Vice President for the Caribbean region, the Bahamas will now help shape the hemispheric housing agenda, strengthen cooperation between Caribbean states, promote access to climate finance for resilient housing, share our urban renewal and Clear Hole Bill framework with regional partners, and secure opportunities for training, technical support, and investment which can advance our domestic programs. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this position elevates our voice at the table where some of the most consequential policy decisions on regional housing and urban development are being made, and it places the Bahamas in a stronger position to secure technical support, investment partnerships, and climate-resilient housing solutions that will directly benefit Bahamian families in the years ahead. The very reforms, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that have positioned the Bahamas as a regional leader are the same reforms transforming our communities at home. Nowhere is it clearer, Mr. Deputy Speaker, than in Renaissance at Carmichael Village, where long-standing promises have finally given way to real construction, real progress, and real homes for Bahamian families. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the progress we are seeing in Renaissance at Carmichael Village must also be understood against the backdrop of national demand for affordable housing. For decades, every serious assessment has concluded that the Bahamas has not been building enough homes to meet the needs of our people. A 1984 national study found that New Providence required more than 1,700 new homes each year. By 2016, the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, in its report, The State of Social Housing in 6 Caribbean Countries, indicated that 3,600 new homes of housing or repairs would be needed annually in the Bahamas. Yet, between 2012 and 2020, construction levels consistently fell short by more than 2,000 homes each year. This is the deficit, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that this administration has been working to close, and Carmichael Village is the one, or rather the clearest example of that progress. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in recent days, the public has also heard suggestions that development is being carried out through some phantom company. Let me state plainly, there is nothing phantom about anything involved in this project. The Carmichael Village Development Project Company Limited is a government-owned entity, legally incorporated, properly constituted, and publicly disclosed since 2022. Its financial arrangements were reported through the government's established systems, questioned in this House, and answered in this House. Every contract, every expenditure, and every stage of construction is traceable. Nothing was hidden because nothing need to be hidden. What some are now describing as secrecy is, in fact, the result of disclosures made by this administration. The facts are clear, even if the political narratives are not. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is important that the Bahamian people understand the long history of this subdivision and the many promises made about it over the past decade. The land on which Renaissance at Carmichael Village now sits was first transferred to the minister responsible for housing in January 2009. That's more than 16 years ago, when the then Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Hubert Alexander Ingram, executed a Crown grant for approximately 60 acres of southwest New Providence. The subdivision was formally announced later that year during the 2010 budget debate, when the Minister of Housing advised Parliament that a new community, already named Carmichael Village, would comprise nearly 300 residential lots, together with commercial parcels, parks, playgrounds, and green spaces. In 2015, the government again announced that it was finalizing plans for the construction of 303 homes within the subdivision. In November 2020, the government held a groundbreaking ceremony at Carmichael Village. At that event, the government announced that the subdivision would now comprise 365 lots, including 70 newly constructed homes in the first phase, together with serviced lots and community amenities. The public was told that infrastructure was underway and that lots and homes, and I quote, lots and homes would shortly become available for Bahamian families. Mr. Deputy Speaker, for more than a decade, the Bahamian people were told again and again that this project was coming. When this administration assumed office in September of 2021, under the leadership of then Minister of Transport and Housing, the Honorable Jobeth Colby Davis, we conducted a comprehensive review of the proposed subdivision. What we met, Mr. Deputy Speaker, was not a development nearing delivery, nor a project capable of producing homes in the short term. Instead, we found a long-promised initiative marked by years of delay and public assurances, but with no homes built and no progress on the ground. I wish to acknowledge the Honorable Jobeth Colby Davis, who confronted these inherited challenges directly and drove the early, decisive steps needed to finally move this project forward. Her work helped break the cycle of delays, of no homes built, and set the foundation for the delivery we are now achieving. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the previous announcements created real hope and expectation among thousands of Bahamians. Yet, beyond the ceremony and the public statements surrounding it, no homes were started, no homes were completed, and no Bahamian families ever received a key. Despite the scale of the commitments made, the site remained without one single completed residence when this administration took office. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this administration therefore made the bold, deliberate decision to rebuild capacity, to start construction, and to finally bring this subdivision out of the ground, a project that began more than a decade ago, to completion. In 2022, the government publicly disclosed that the continued development of the Carmichael subdivision would be overseen through a wholly government-owned company called the Carmichael Village Project Development Company Limited, incorporated on the 18th of March 2022. The company exists. It was properly constituted. It was created for one purpose: to oversee the delivery of homes for Bahamian families. This Honorable House, Mr. Deputy Speaker, was further advised that the entity would secure project financing in the amount of $20 million. And this administration answered multiple questions on the company and its financing structure. With a proper, efficient structure in place, the project finally moved forward. In July 2023, over a decade after this project was announced, the first completed homes were delivered to Bahamian families. Additional homes have since been completed, and more are under active construction today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the company is real. The homes are real. The families living in those homes are real. The dozens of contractors working on the site are real. After a decade of promises, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the project has finally come to fruition. It is a real progress for real Bahamians. Therefore, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I place on record the following. The development company is legally incorporated and properly constituted. The project financing was publicly disclosed in 2022. All funds utilized are recorded within the government's established financial reporting systems, and construction at the Carmichael site is active, ongoing, and in plain sight. Mr. Deputy Speaker, for absolute clarity, the financing of this project is not complicated. The company initially secured a $20 million loan to commence construction. The government has since repaid that loan in full and has provided financial support directly to the company so that the work on the subdivision can continue without interruption. The company continues to complete and sell homes, and the revenue from those sales may then be applied to repay the government or to support further construction. This is a responsible, transparent, and fully disclosed financing arrangement that ensures continuity of the project and the steady delivery of homes to Bahamian families. Mr. Deputy Speaker, developing a subdivision of this magnitude is a capital-intensive undertaking. It requires careful planning, disciplined financing, and consistent execution. The homes now standing in Carmichael reflect that approach. They provide tangible relief to families who have waited far too long for access to affordable housing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is important to acknowledge the men and women who have carried this project forward. The work is being guided by a competent board of directors comprised of dedicated public servants who have discharged their duties without additional remuneration. They have been supported by a strong team of technical officers, engineers, planners, contractors, and tradesmen. These professionals have approached their responsibilities with discipline and professionalism, and the results are visible in the homes now completed and the community taking shape. Their contribution has been central to the progress we see today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, since taking office, this administration has delivered 40 new homes in Pinecrest, 8 homes in Dignity Gardens, 15 homes in Linden Pinland Estates, over 65 homes in Renaissance, along with more new homes in Ocean Holy Lutheran, Central Pines in Spring City and Abaco, Fire Trail in New Providence, Bahamia and Grand Bahama, and even as families are settling into these communities, dozens more homes are rising across this country. 35 more homes are now under construction in Renaissance, a further 28 advancing through the next phase there. And active homes are being constructed in Pride Estates, St. Salvador, Vispin Road, Malcolm Lane, Monique Avenue, Ridgeland Park, Yellow Elder, Badolio Street, Iris Spring, Court of V Street, and of course, Yellow Elder. Wow. Many of these homes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, will be occupied between December and January, with more scheduled for completion in the months ahead. At Renaissance at Carmichael Village alone, 2 new 24-unit condominium buildings are on track for delivery by June of next year, which is further evidence that our national housing program is not slowing down, but accelerating community by community. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my Minister of State, the Honourable Member for Marathon, and I remain focused on expanding home ownership and completing the Carmichael development to the highest standards. We will continue to provide this Honourable House and the Bahamian people with accurate, factual information as the work progresses there and as the work progresses through our archipelago. I thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and may God continue to bless these beautiful islands we call our home. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Order that the communications be brought up. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I just wanted to remind the House, I know the nature of government communications as such, that they should not be controversial. But I wish to put on the record, Mr. Deputy, that when we first raised this issue, we raised this issue because the Minister of Housing had indicated that she was borrowing $20 million, as the Minister indicated, to construct the homes. I pointed out at that time that the Minister, while a corporate soul, had no ability to borrow $20 million, which was later confirmed despite the objections of the side opposite, that only the Prime Minister had the ability to obligate us to a loan. That loan, we understand, Mr. Deputy, came from Jamaica. Through interesting circumstances, Mr. Deputy. And what we have asserted is that the $20 million, Mr. Deputy, has not hit the ground in that particular development. We've asked the government to verify whether or not the $20 million, whether they had $20 million worth of homes in that location. The members just indicated that the $20 million that they placed in the company was. Sorry.
The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, there was a communication by a minister who set facts on the table. If there are questions that the member for Marco City wishes to advance, there's a time for that. This is not the time in the agenda for that, Mr. Deputy Speaker. At the end of the day, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the assertion was that is being answered that the company did not exist. The minister has only answered the assertion that the company existed. It's directed by public servants who, to their credit, are operating without additional remuneration. That's not controversial unless they're saying it's not incorporated. If they wish to raise these other issues, they can ask questions at the appropriate time. My objection is this is not appropriate for this part of the agenda.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Noted. Honorable Member for Marco City, is this a question? So we can put it in writing?
Mr. Deputy, I just remind the House by way of you that I, in fact, read into the record 2 separate letters with the entire list of questions that, contrary to what the member of government, leader of government said, those questions were not answered by the member for Carmichael. I read all of those, and if you would permit me, I'd take my seat. I would like to, again, get a copy of those letters, and just, again, for the benefit of the House and the country, to hear the questions. Those were not addressed, sir. And so I would ask your indulgence for me to, in a few moments, I can have before me those letters and read those questions. And again, those questions were not addressed. And one of it was the disbursement of the original 20 million, and whether or not, if you had a quantity surveyor look at that site, can you find 20 or even 10? So we are asserting that we are repaying a loan that has not hit the ground at the level. So I'm asking for your indulgence in that regard.
Thank you. Yeah.
So again, the assertions were not answered. Sorry.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Honourable Member.
And if you would, I now have the letter in front of me.
One minute.
I would be happy to read.
Honourable Member for Marco City.
Sure.
The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for
The
Freetown.
issue is that communication by ministers are not controversial. The other responses to the questions would engage controversy and would not be appropriate for communication.
Yeah. Honourable
The
Member.
communication
Honourable
addressed
Member.
was-
Since the letters have been, you already laid the letters. The questions
Yes, the questions have been put both in, again, letter form to the
on the agenda.
and in the House, and at no point have they been answered. Today is a continuation of that. They have not been answered. So what has been asserted by the member for Freetown to the public is that no, we have answered your questions. We're saying no, and we'd like to read those questions into the record.
I understand where you're coming from, but the question and answer is on the second, if I'm not mistaken, the second Wednesday in every month.
Mr. Deputy, I'd like to remind you that we have challenges with this administration in terms of the second Wednesday being honored by them. So I'm just asking, later today, am I able, and again, I can do that in a few minutes, read those questions into the record without the...
I'm going to ask the minister from Freetown or for Carmichael if they're going to answer the question before we move on.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I nowhere asserted that all of the many questions, the repetitive questions that are asked, were answered. What was asserted was that the question about the existence of the company was answered.
Okay.
And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is all. All of the rest of it is controversial. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is not for contentious business. If they're on the record, if they're in the record of the House, we can go backward and forward about performance,
we're gonna move
question
on.
times.
Yeah.
But they're on the record, according to him. The assertion made was the existence of the company. That's non-controversial. It's in the registry, and that was answered.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Order that the documents do lie on the table. Further communications by ministers?
No further communication.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, seats, and new writs. Presentations of petitions. Presentations of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown.
No first reading.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's my honor to rise again in this honorable House to move for the second reading and committal of the Smuggling of Migrants Bill 2025. Before I do so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I always say that I'm here because God woke me up in my right mind. He hasn't given me my full voice today, but he's given me sufficient, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the occasion, and he always gives you just what you need. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we come to public life to make a difference. One would hope that that is the case. And in doing so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we seek to move this country forward. The Constitution sets out that the job of members of Parliament and the government, well, the legislature, is to make laws for the good governance and order of this country. We do not, Mr. Deputy Speaker, live alone. We are part of a region, CARICOM. We're part of a hemisphere. We're part of what our neighbors to the north considers their homeland, as we're assigned to the Northern Command of the U.S., which is now Department of War, which is what they have called what was previously the Department of Defense. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we must be concerned about the security of the Bahamas as it is impacted regionally and globally. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we often move through the committee stage and we ask for the agreement of the long title, the short title. To commence this debate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would just set out so that it is clear what the purpose of this bill is. And it is a bill for an act to strengthen border security and international cooperation, to prevent and combat migrant smuggling, to provide measures for the protection of migrants, to prescribe penalties for offenses of migrant smuggling, and for matters connected therewith. That is what this bill is about, and only what this bill is about. But let us set the context clearly, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In this region, the CARICOM countries have agreed, and most, if not all, have already enacted similar provisions. And the reason, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is the need to control migration. And if there were any doubt, Mr. Deputy Speaker, about that, after this bill was tabled, the United States government issued its national security strategy in November 2025. And I would trust that persons who are going to speak on this bill would have considered what our neighbors to the north have asserted is their position in this area. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, on page 16 of their national security strategy, they say this: our goal for the Western Hemisphere can be summarized as enlist and expand. We will enlist established friends in the hemisphere to control migration, stop drug flows, and strengthen stability and security on land and sea. They then, and I would say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they regard us as established friends. because they talk about expanding to people their views. And under enlist, they say this: American policy should focus on enlisting regional champions that can create tolerable stability in the region, even beyond those partners' borders. These nations would help stop illegal and destabilizing migrations, neutralize cartels, nearshore manufacturing, and develop local private economy, amongst other things. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in a report to the press, the commander of the Defense Force, Commodore Floyd Moxey, highlighted that between the years 2021 to 2025, 11,791 migrants were intercepted by the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and our international partners. And that would be inbound to this country. Of that 11,791,000, 6,545 of those were Haitian nationals. The other 5,200 and so were of mixed nationality, inclusive of Cubans, Ecuadorians, Dominicans, and others. As well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there were intercepted 3,677 migrants leaving the Bahamas in smuggling exercises. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is the case of what this bill is to address. And as lawmakers, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we do not have the luxury of anything other than examining what the law is, what the mischief is, and fashioning a remedy to address that mischief. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is clear that these persons are intercepted at sea, because the Commodore made it clear that these numbers do not account for interceptions and interdiction on land in cooperation and conjunction with the Department of Immigration. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is the problem. That is the mischief. As lawmakers, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in fashioning remedies, we must be wholly aware of any limitations that apply. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I've heard, and we are a responsive government, and so I would say, having heard what was said, it would be our intent to bring a movement to delete Section 11, which, when I go through the bill, Mr. Deputy Speaker, one may see as superfluous in any event. But before I get to the bill, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because I want to deal with the nuts and bolts of it, the Honourable Member for Cat Island, Rumpke and San Salvador will give the overarching presentation on this. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would hope that everyone coming here to debate this bill today would be aware fully of the terms of the law of this country. But because ignorance of the law is no excuse. We table bills, they're put online, and consultation can be engaged. Every responsible party in here has a duty to find out the full legal framework. So I would hope, having gotten correspondence and feedback from some in here, that the case of the Court of Appeal, in an appeal from a magistrate, which according to our law cannot be appealed further, and so is final on this point. In the case of Magistrates Court Criminal Appeal number 175 of 2024, Darren Henderson and the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Department of Immigration, the decision of the Court of Appeal comprised of Madam Justice Crane Scott, Justice of Appeal, Mr. Justice Evans, Justice of Appeal, and Madam Justice Charles, Justice of Appeal. It's a very sobering decision, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when one looks at the interception of migrants at sea. Because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was a case in which a Cuban migrant was intercepted on a vessel at sea, was brought to the Bahamas, charged and convicted of illegal landing. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the case deals with leave to appeal out of time, but it also deals with the merits of the actual charge. And so I would invite the public's attention, because it's important that the public know what, for the want of layman's terms, loopholes we are seeking to close, laws we're seeking to improve. The issue arose, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of whether Mr. Hernandez could said to have been guilty of illegally landing in the Bahamas. And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is dealt with from paragraphs 18 onward in the speech of Mr. Justice Evans. And it is said, counsel submitted that the facts relied on by the Crown could not possibly constitute an offense pursuant to Section 19 of the Immigration Act. He contends that in order to be guilty of an offense under Section 19 of the Act, the person must have either landed in the Bahamas or embarked from the Bahamas without the permission of the immigration authorities. In this case, he concluded that the facts relied on do not support or even assert that the intended appellant either landed or embarked from within the Bahamas. And so that one can understand what landed means, Section 21 of the, this is paragraph 21, sets out the definition in the Immigration Act. And then Justice Evans continues in paragraph 22. This was acknowledged by Dame Joan Sawyer, President, in the case of Javago Cooper, Commissioner of Police, which is a case dealing with persons charged with assisting illegal landing, contrary to the Immigration Act. And the relevant part of the quote from Dame Joan is this: because of the way in which the Act defines land, it seems clear to us that the action of assisting will have to coincide with the action of landing. For example, where persons are seen to be boarding a dinghy from a non-Bahamian vessel and then rowing to a beach where they're met by persons who, up until then, were hidden in the underbrush behind the sound dunes. These persons who were hiding could be charged with assisting in the legal landing of the persons from the dinghy. That is but one example. And Justice Evans then goes on. It is evident that, as stated by Dame Joan Sawyer, President, landing as contemplated by the Act is an action. It is therefore not sufficient to be found in territorial waters. It must be shown that the accused person either left the vessel and entered the land or made an attempt to do so. The facts read on which the learned Chief Magistrate convicted the intended appellant did not show that the intended appellant ever set foot on Bahamian soil, nor that he made any attempt to do so. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is the state of law in this country. And one must be reminded of this close to 12,000 migrants intercepted inbound. They were intercepted at sea. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when one looks at this act, one will then see how this administration is working, as it is said, to strengthen our national security interests in strengthening our borders and controlling migration. And so we've considered the long title, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But it is interesting that you begin by looking at how things are defined. And the smuggling of migrants, or smuggle a migrant, which is what this is criminalizing, is defined. And it says smuggling of migrants, smuggle a migrant means to obtain directly or indirectly a financial or other material gain for procuring the illegal entry or illegal landing. And I would pause, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to see that there is a change of language, because it's not just illegal landing that is outlawed, but it is also illegal entry into the country, into or through the Bahamas, where the person is not a citizen, legal resident of the Bahamas, or into another country where the person is a citizen or legal resident of the Bahamas, but is not a citizen or legal resident of that other country, or C, into another country from or through the Bahamas, where the person is not a citizen or legal resident of the Bahamas and is not a citizen or legal resident of the other country. This definition, Mr. Deputy Speaker, makes it quite clear that what is being criminalized is bringing anyone into this country illegally who is not a Bahamian or who we have not granted a right to be here as a legal resident. And that addresses the security of this country. But one must remember the statement in the United States National Security Strategy, because in its present incarnation, they very aggressively enforce their national security interests. And if Bahamians would have any view otherwise, I would invite everyone to read their strategy and then have a look at what they are doing in the world and in this hemisphere. But what is covered by the other two paragraphs are people who may be Bahamian, but are seeking to enter another country illegally. And one only needs to remember the reports of the unfortunate sinking of vessels headed to the U.S. with persons legally in the Bahamas on board, where all persons perished in some cases, or only one person survived in another. And in one of those instances, one of the persons was somebody in the Bahamas legally on a work permit. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the paragraphs B and C of the definition, we are living up to our international obligation in not permitting the Bahamas to become a transit country for human smuggling, just as we have an obligation not to permit it to become a transit country for drug trafficking. And again, we are sought to be enlisted, and this would be a righteous fight in this case, to prevent human smuggling with all of the attendant problems that that creates for the migrant and the country. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, one then goes on so that we can understand this act to talk about the application of this act. And it's not discriminatory. It impacts white migrants just as it impacts black migrants. The color is not material. And so I choose to say discriminatory on the basis of nationality, whether you're Cuban, Haitians, Dominicans. One must remember of the 11,700 persons inbound here, over 5,000 were of a different nationality. It's not discriminatory on race either. It is said to be consistent with the principle of non-refoulement, and I will address that here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because some people seem to suggest that the principle of non-refoulement means, for instance, for the migrants that are the focus of many Bahamians, Haitian nationals, that they would not be able to be repatriated to the Republic of Haiti. But the record of this government in record repatriations, many of them to the Republic of Haiti, shows that it is possible without offending the principle of non-refoulement, which is an existing obligation. And so the public will recall that this government deported persons to the Republic of Haiti to the port of Cape Haitian, either by air or when the airport was closed, by sea on board the HMBS Lawrence Major, whereas we do not deport persons to Port-au-Prince. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this concept that the principle of non-refoulement will prevent returns is not accurate. It is a principle that we are bound by now, and it's a principle that has not prevented record deportations during the course of this administration. And finally, it accounts for the special needs of smuggled migrants, in particular women and children and other migrants with special needs. That would be, Mr. Deputy Speaker, an obligation that our Constitution, quite apart from Christian charity, would impose upon us. That is one of the inalienable rights of persons not to be mistreated. It is unfortunate that there would be any appetite for the mistreatment of people in any event. And then, Mr. Deputy Speaker, more importantly, because we do put this legislation online to hear back from the public, Section 4 deals with the jurisdiction of this act. And what is very clear is that it permits prosecution in the Bahamas where, and it says this act applies where the conduct constituting the offense took place inside, which is common to jurisdiction, or outside the Bahamas, well, and whatever the nationality of the offender. So in law school, we were taught that jurisdiction was national. This imports extraterritorial jurisdiction, and I will explain shortly why that is important. And it is where the Bahamas is the receiving country to which a person is smuggled, or the transit country through which a person is smuggled, or a foreign country is the receiving or transit country, but the smuggling of migrants commences in the Bahamas or transits through the Bahamas. The importance of this provision, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is the members, the officers, and Marines of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force have been tasked by this government to cooperate internationally. And so from time to time, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they patrol with the consent of the Turks and Caicos government the waters of the Turks and Caicos Islands, borders ours. They, on occasion, interdict persons inbound to our country that may or may not yet be within the territorial bounds of this country. They also, if one casts one's mind back to Hernandez, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this act is an answer to Anana as saying, I wasn't coming to the Bahamas. I was going to the U.S. And all one needs to do is think about the men and women who are at sea in good weather and bad, on duty, 24 hours a day. The usual patrol length of a 30-meter patrol craft is 10 to 14 days. The usual patrol time of a 21-meter vessel, 41-meter vessel is 21 days, and the usual patrol time of a 60-meter vessel is 30 days. And so that the Bahamian people can understand the dedication of the committed men and women of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force who encounter vessels at sea, often in unseaworthy conditions, and must contend firstly with the obligation to assist people in distress at sea, but in guarding our heritage, must then make determinations as to whether any of our laws have been transgressed. This makes it marvelously simple, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We don't have to concern ourselves with an interrogation of whether you're going to the U.S., the Bahamas, because to do so would create a very easy loophole for someone to fit through. If you're caught by the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, all you would have to say is, I wasn't coming to the Bahamas. I was going to the U.S. And without this act, there'd be absolutely nothing they could do about it. And if you were caught by the U.S. Coast Guard, all you need to tell them is, well, no, I wasn't coming to the U.S. I was going to the Bahamas. And so the fact that persons do not appreciate the simplicity with which this protection of this country is now put into place by removing this potential loophole is truly mind-boggling. And the act goes further in jurisdiction to say this act shall also apply to any offense established under this act when the smuggled migrant is a national or legal resident of the Bahamas. That's when you're being amalgamated to be smuggled somewhere else. The offense is committed by a national or legal resident of the Bahamas. And C, the offense is committed outside the territory of the Bahamas for the purpose of committing a serious crime within the territory of the Bahamas. And so this is additional jurisdiction. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is clear the security that is seeking to be created here. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are a limited number of offenses created by this act. The first is Section 5. A person who engages in the smuggling of migrants commits the offense of smuggling. And we, in the interpretation section, set out how you smuggle people. And what has caused some angst, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is the succeeding subsections that begin by saying that for the purpose of subsection 1, a person procures or attempts to procure the illegal entry or illegal landing of a migrant if the person, and it sets out things that you can do. But these are not independent offenses. These are ways that you can meet the definition of smuggling. And there are a number of them. And it goes on in subparagraph 3, the same thing. In subparagraph 4, it talks about basically methods of aggravating smuggling. So if you're endangering life or you torture or subject someone to inhumane or degrading treatment. So again, this does not create a new offense. This simply aggravates the offense of human smuggling. And then, of course, the last sections deal with the punishment. And when it talks about travel documents that created quite a commotion, again, that is simply to address meeting the definition of smuggling that is in the interpretation paragraph, but the one offense created is smuggling a migrant. The second offense committed is organizing, directing, or aiding and abetting a person to commit the offense of human smuggling. And that is really all that Section 6 does. Now, thus far, a migrant cannot smuggle himself, according to the definition. And according to Section 6, a migrant cannot organize, direct, aid, or abet his own smuggling based on how human smuggling is defined in the Act. Section 7, therefore, Mr. Deputy Speaker, creates the third offense. The third offense is enabling illegal stay of a smuggled migrant, and it's basically a person who, in order to obtain, directly or indirectly, a financial or other material benefit, procures, facilitates, or promotes, or attempts to promote, or attempts to procure, facilitate, or promote the actual or intended stay in the Bahamas or in a protocol state of a smuggled migrant, that creates an offense. Again, an offense in relation that can be committed here in the Bahamas or in any other protocol state, and again, on its definition, an offense that cannot be committed by the migrant. And paragraph 8, Section 8, creates now the fourth offense, harboring or attempting to harbor smuggled migrants. And a person who intentionally harbors or attempts to harbor a smuggled migrant, and again, to obtain directly or indirectly a financial or other material gain, and to prevent the apprehension of the migrant, commits offense. And again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this offense on its definition cannot be committed by the migrant. The last offense created is abetment and conspiracy, and it's a person who abets or conspires to commit an offense under Section 8, which is harboring or attempting to harbor smuggled migrants, commits an offense. And again, that is an offense that cannot be committed by the migrant on its definition. Section 10 deals with the penalties, and then, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I've indicated, a movement will be moved to delete Section 11. But let me say this, Mr. Deputy Speaker. When one reads what was then Section 11, it says, without prejudice to the applicability of any other law establishing a criminal offense. Those words simply mean what we're about to say doesn't affect any other law. So it remains. One could look through this act and see that this act doesn't purport to repeal any existing law either. And it says this, and this is how it was worded: a smuggled migrant shall not be liable in criminal prosecution under this act. So criminal prosecution under this act could only be for an offense under this act. And if one looks at all of the offenses committed, none of them can be committed by a migrant. We've heard the outcry. This is a responsive government. Although, as I've said, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when you look at it, one would just ask, what offense illegal entry into the receiving country or transit country? I don't see that offense created, or any other that you're getting immunity for. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government is responding by removing it. people had a problem with there being immunity, and it's being removed. The fact that I say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is when one examines it, I could not see the import of it. The rest of it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, deals with duties of persons. And then, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's part 3 that sets out basically what happens now, because all that is set out there happens now. Part 4 deals with cooperation and coordination, and basically requires coordination of efforts, the making of regulations, the development of a national plan of action, establishing periodic review for the achievements and objectives of this act, facilitating interagency and multidisciplinary cooperation between government agencies, and other matters of cooperation with the Coast Guard and other states. I would say, sorry?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister, for yielding. So I think Bahamians would like you to clear up this particular issue, and obviously, in your private avocation as an attorney, you're more than able, and I say that sincerely, to answer this. So you talked about any other existing, that doesn't affect any other existing law, not your exact words, right? But in section 35 here, it says, in the event, and so I just need some clarity, in the event of a conflict or inconsistency between the provisions of this act and those of other written laws, the provisions of this act shall prevail, and the conflicting or inconsistent provisions of the other written laws shall, to the extent of the conflict of inconsistency, be deemed to be superseded, right? So to Bahamians who read this, and to them, this particular provision says that this law will supersede any other law if there is some, in the event that there is some conflict. How do you explain that, please?
In the words that exist, it will supersede if there's a conflict. So for instance, there are laws that say there is no extraterritorial jurisdiction. Insofar as this bill says there's extraterritorial jurisdiction, then of course that would fall away. But in terms of the creation of offenses that do not exist currently, that cannot conflict with something that does exist. The concerns that were stoked and held passionately by some folks was somehow this feeling that migrants were getting some right that they didn't previously have. There was this feeling somehow that the non-refoulement provision would create some problem. The non-refoulement provision already exists in our law today. The assessment of persons for claims of refugee status already exists today. And for all persons who are being overly exercised by it, economic reasons is not a grounds for refugee status or asylum. The fact that I come from a poor country does not ground refugee status. The fact that a part of my country is in conflict does not ground refugee status. And in any event, the member for Cat Island, Rumkins, and Salvador made it clear, this was at the meeting in Los Angeles, that we are not opening ourselves up to receive refugees. It was very clear. And so everyone else and we did not. That was under a different president. This president says that he wants people who can hold the line with him and stop illegal migration. And this bill will help us to do our part in stopping illegal migration to us and to them or to anybody else. It's impermissible for the Bahamas to sit back and say, oh, the people aren't coming to the Bahamas, so we can just let it flow. Let me be quite clear about this. We have been cooperating with the United States of America across administrations. We are assigned by the Department of War to be a part of Northern Command and NORAD, which is the part of their Department of War that they designate to protect their homeland. So they look at us as they look at Canada, as they look at Mexico, as a part of their immediate border for them to be concerned about. And so, for instance, they have provided us
Member,
with,
point of order?
no, in a moment.
Okay, he's wrapping up.
No, I'm not wrapping up, but I'll entertain him in a moment.
Oh, the chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
After I finish this point, if I may.
Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker. So much so that one would have seen recently that the U.S. government has donated to the Bahamas government years' supply of spare parts and material to help us to maintain our small fleet. And the importance of that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and to the Bahamian public, is that as migrant trends change, we change to be responsive. And so, yes, we have offshore patrol craft, coastal patrol craft that move at certain speeds. But as the smugglers have evolved, we were able to acquire fast intercept vessels that cruise at 50 knots to be able to be deployed to intercept targets. And so the U.S. government, in their effort to enlist people to help them and to incentivize you, has given us that gift for which we are grateful. Mind you, it assists us in assisting them. They have also donated, over the course of time, a coastal radar to affect our domain awareness that is installed in Inagua, one that is installed at HMBS Coral Harbor, one that has been installed at Duncan Town, Ragged Island. They have also donated another 2 that Commander Defense Force and his team have determined to locate in Grand Bahama and Abaco to permit us to respond to the threat of migration through the Bahamas to the U.S., and they felt that that was only right because that's to use equipment donated by, again, Northern Command to assist in our obligation to stop migrants flowing to them. They have partnered with these coastal radar, the fast intercept vessels that will be tasked to intercept vessels that are detected by the radars. The public may have seen a broadcast by NBC News where that corporation helpfully, in response to criticism of the Bahamas by local sheriffs in Florida about migration through the Bahamas to Florida, they were making a lot of noise. They came and they were able to present our side of what we are doing to combat migrant smuggling. And most importantly, the next step in carrying out our international obligation in this event to our neighbors to the north is the criminalizing of conduct by this bill.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy, and thank the member for Freetown for allowing the question. Am I to understand that you will be withdrawing the Section 11 from the bill completely. Okay. And does the bill, and I understand that the bill creates the offense of, that would affect the smuggler, but does the bill create an offense against the migrant themselves who participated in the transaction? No, but with the greatest respect, you had indicated that the bill was necessary because of the Privy Council, because of the Court of Appeal, which created this loophole that if you didn't land, that there really was no offense. So if that is so, and there are two participants in that transaction, does the bill deal with the migrant who is also a participant in it? Because if the Court of Appeal created that loophole for the smuggler, then there's also a possible loophole for the migrant. So I'm just asking.
I would answer that.
Very well.
To be clear, the Court of Appeal decision doesn't create any loophole for the smuggler. The Court of Appeal decision says for the migrant, the offense is illegal landing. Quite frankly, migrants are at sea. And if you look at the numbers, which was also published in the NBC report, you will see a line up with a spike and then a line down. The military people tell you in the analysis, the intelligence people, that you have pull factors, factors that pull migrants to a country. And you have push factors, factors that push you out of your existing country. Poverty, war, things like that would push you out. The pull factor, for instance, was President Biden's announcement of all of these visas that people just missaw. So you do have a case that when you come across a vessel at sea, unless the people helpfully tell you where they're going, you don't know where they're going. What you can do, because of this protocol, you can outlaw the smuggling, but the person who is being smuggled, if he is paid to be smuggled to the U.S., would say, well, I didn't do anything in your country. I had no intention to land in your country. If they say I intended to land in the Bahamas, then you have an offense. Not at all. What you have is this. You have to outlaw offenses, and the law permits you to do certain things, and it does not permit you to do others. The reality of it is this. If you look at the scheme of the law, if there is somebody who is intending, sorry? Yeah. Let's hear you.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
I accept that the intent of the law is to deal with the smuggler. But my question is, does the law itself deal with the person who has paid the funds, has intent on either entering your country or entering another country? The law does not, as far as I understand, the law does not address that person. And so I think but again, with the greatest respect, I think, though, this law, the same way, well, we can have a chat sort of afterward, but no, we can speak to it. We can speak to it afterward. But I think what I would recommend is that and this is the point that we raise and we'll raise in our presentation. The law should treat the migrant And I accept 11 should be out. I accept that. 11 should be out. But if you take 11 out, then you should also create an offense for the migrant, the person who's paid, who is being transported, I believe, because he is also a part of the illegal transaction.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumpkin, St. Salvador. No? Wait, hold on. He has a-
Mr. Deputy
no.
Speaker,
Yeah,
to put it quite plainly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are offenses that address the migrant. If the migrant attempts to land in the Bahamas, it's an offense. If the migrant doesn't attempt to land in the Bahamas, because like Mr. Hernandez, he had no desire to come to the Bahamas, then he does not commit an offense, nor could you vest him with an offense, because he had no intent to transgress your laws. Anyone who intends to transgress the laws of the Bahamas are currently the subject of an offense under the Immigration Act. And the person who is smuggled could only reasonably be punished for the country they intend to enter, whereas the smuggler, the offense that is outlawed for the smuggler, and I would suggest that persons with concern read the protocol, because the protocol would explain it and would show exactly what the purpose is. And so the protocol, I wonder if persons concerned realize what it means to adopt extraterritorial jurisdiction. Generally, you don't get to exercise jurisdiction over anything that doesn't happen in your country. And because we have shipping lanes through the Bahamas, because we have shipping lanes through the Bahamas, well, East Grand Bahama, I would suggest you read the protocol. And what in the nothing in the protocol permits extension of extraterritorial jurisdiction to anybody other than the smuggler. It's as simple as that. Now, that's the fact, and that is what we can outlaw, and so we've outlawed it. Nobody has permitted us to outlaw the other aspects, and those people are punished if they intend to land here, attempt to land here. The protocol does not go so far as that, and that's the simple answer to it.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Central Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much. For my edification, you mentioned the word non-refoulement. And I didn't want to interrupt, but I don't want it to be lost also. You mentioned that it already exists in our law. Is that via interpretation, or does the word exist in somewhere in law prior to this bill? The word itself, not interpretation.
Which simply means you can't return somebody, for instance, to a war zone. That's something that when we became a nation in 1973, that bound us. Now, that doesn't say that you can't return somebody to that country, but that's a principle that has bound us for the last 52 years. There's nothing new about it.
The word, that's my first time hearing the word. I'm not in law, but when I heard the word non-refoulement, I started looking it up. But what you described just now, I fully understand it. So I was asking if the word itself, non-refoulement already, or the principle or the interpretation of the law, and I believe you answered that. Just that I've never seen the word itself before.
The other thing that I think is lost on some people when they engage with this is this, because we've heard the Americans complain about this. To actually deport somebody, you need permission from the country you are deporting them to. And so, for instance, I think there are two countries that the Americans complain do not accept their citizens back. And so this thing about international relations is not about becoming emotional. It's governed by rules that we signed up to in '73. Every time we deport somebody back to the Republic of Haiti, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has to get permission from the Haitian government for us to send them and them to be received. The same thing with the Cuban government, the same thing with the Chinese government, and non-refoulement has been in place for 52 years. And so the focus on it as if it is something brand new is deceptive and provocative. All of these obligations have existed, and many of them are grounded in the fundamental rights of anyone in this country, citizen or otherwise.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. This obviously is a very important debate that we're having, and I fully appreciate the openness with which we're having this discussion, because we must appreciate that what you've outlined and the government has outlined, that we're saying that illegal immigrants, right, along with the smuggler, are complicit in trying to, they leave with the intent, right, to break a law in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas willingly, and they agree. The smuggler and the illegal immigrants agree that we head into the Bahamas, right, where we should not be going. And what we are saying is that the fate of the smuggler is different from the persons who was in agreement to come and break the laws of the Bahamas. And then let me just, and then you can, no, and you can answer this as well, Minister. You can answer this as well, okay? So the government has indicated that they would extract number 11, right? But we're looking at number 13, and it says facilitating entry or stay for justice processes. The minister, meaning the Minister of National Security, and we do have a question about that as well, why the Minister of National Security as opposed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs or the Attorney General. The minister may grant a temporary residence permit. So persons who have come here illegally, the minister can grant, albeit yet for the purpose of investigation or prosecution, but a temporary residence permit. That's hard for the Bahamian people to swallow, right? Hard. So then why put it in there, Minister?
Do it now. Why put it?
Thank you, honorable member.
You can do that now. Why put it in there?
The questions really are mischaracterization first. The first issue, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is simply this.
You have to criminalize smuggling.
That's what we're doing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there constantly is this refrain that the person leaves their country intending to enter the Bahamas. Hernandez demonstrated that that isn't always true about a smuggled person. And I know that St. Barnabas says he has some regard for my previous vocation. Well, let me help you all. Once somebody knows, no. Once somebody knows you, and the street will teach you this, because this is why we keep building a better mousetrap. All persons need to know is to say, all I need to know is to say, I go into Miami.
Or say, I don't know where I am.
Exactly. And the protocol does not permit you to engage with that person extraterritorially. Now, the minute that person says, or it's determined that this person is headed to the Bahamas, it is an offense. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, what is so amazing is that you have a situation where we're given an opportunity to criminalize behavior. We're limited to criminalizing the behavior of the migrant if they enter this country or attempt to enter this country. Because the next thing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is we would have to find, and it is some concern to the minister responsible for national security, we would have to find prison spaces for 12,000 persons. 1,000 persons. And the side opposite can just, don't worry about that, because once your prison fills up, then you have the other problem that you'll have a court saying, you can't keep all these people there. You're going to have to prioritize. So the reality is the persons who attempt to enter the Bahamas, breaking our laws, continue to commit an offense against this country, and we don't require extraterritorial jurisdiction to address that, and so we don't have to worry about the protocol in addressing that, and so those people commit the offense. Persons, I'm wrapping up shortly. Yeah, I have 12 more minutes. Persons like Mr. Hernandez, who have no intention of entering the Bahamas, that he said, the reality of it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is you have to prove a case, a criminal case, and it is well known. And in case St. Barnabas wonders why the person who may have responsibility for the police should be able to say, don't deport this person. Persons who were witnesses in murders have been deported from the Bahamas before the police completed investigations. And what the section does, the section is limited, as is said, to facilitate investigation or prosecution or recovery or rehabilitation. If you're injured, you can't transport an injured man, as happened with a gentleman who was at the detention center, was ill, had to go to the hospital before he could be deported. And so the reality of setting up boogeyman are just that. The question is, there are 5 offenses created by this bill. It doesn't interfere, doesn't repeal any other bill, because nothing in those sections relate to any existing offense, and all of the other provisions are already existing. And so the question simply is this, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Are we in this country going to decide that we will be enlisted? We will permit ourselves, as CARICOM has been, to be enlisted in stopping the Bahamas being a transit country for illegal migration. According to Hernandez, permit us to engage aggressively with smugglers. Because let us be clear, persons say you couldn't have a smuggler if you didn't have the smuggled. And that is actually correct. That is saying you couldn't have drug traffickers if you didn't have drug users. And that is in fact correct as well. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, the reality of the protocol speaks. The protocol permits us to unambiguously hold smugglers accountable, and that is what we're doing. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would wish to close. I wish to close very simply by saying this, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Bahamian people have elected persons to lead on their behalf and to represent them. I have, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and you would have thought I was being nice, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in engaging the interventions from the side opposite. But I did that for this reason, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This bill was tabled in this House before the by-election in the beginning of November. The side opposite would have had access to it for all of this time. The first piece of communication that I'm privy of coming from them came to me at 9:18 a.m. this morning. It set out, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in its terms that they had urgent, burning issues with this bill. They asked for what the young people would say, a stand down. And what is very interesting, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and which is why this exercise of backward and forward, for my part, was engaged. It is unfortunate that it is almost as if one licks the finger, puts it up in the air to test which way the wind is blowing, and then determines what is the position to be taken. I do not, and we do not begrudge anyone any concern. You got it with something?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
You know, I do take exception to what the member for Freetown has said, because all of us are members of Parliament. All of us take our roles extremely seriously. All of us review these bills, or all of us actually should review these bills and take advice on these bills as well. The concerns that were raised weren't just things that these members of Parliament thought up. These were concerns that were raised by experienced persons in the field who raised these concerns to us. So all we are saying is take the concerns seriously. It is not a point of just the concern being blown in one direction, or we are listening to the wind in one direction. These are very valid concerns that folks have raised to us. So all we are saying is take the concerns seriously.
The chair recognizes the honorable member
Deputy
for Freetown.
Speaker, we take all concerns seriously. To demonstrate the issue that I have, and I've had for some time, is this. Persons from the public engage us. They have had this bill from early November. And so, having had the bill for November, this bill was first scheduled to be debated, not today. It was first scheduled to be debated Wednesday. The Lord intervened and took away the robustness of my voice. The Lord did that. He didn't, and so I know some people are praying that he doesn't change his mind, but it appears that he is. So this was first set to be debated on Wednesday. Then it slipped to Thursday to allow my recovery. Now it slipped to Monday. The point I make, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is simply this. This is earth-shattering all the important things that Marco City will no doubt say it is. They got their legal advice, because you have a lot of people in our fraternity on whom they can call, eminent men and women, and learned men and women, who would have told them about Hernandez and told them about all these things. But rather than engage with us, I could say, okay, you were busy during the by-election. Fine, we could understand that. You were trying to avoid a beating, which you didn't, but I could understand why you were busy during the by-election. And the by-election was Monday, and then from Monday to the following Wednesday, nothing. And then Wednesday, nothing. We were supposed to debate on Wednesday. Thursday, nothing. And only 9:18 on the morning of Monday is it asserted. What we would expect is not engagement after the fact. You've had it all of this time. You've had all of this advice. Send us what your queries are. So we could tell you the protocol limits us to this, and that's why we're doing it. The actual domestic law still criminalizes the migrant. Still criminalizes the migrant. The importance of this bill is we can take your stuff if you're smuggling people. The Defense Force intercepted a Donzi vessel captained by an American with 2 male Ecuadorians, 2 female Ecuadorians, and a Dominican, a supposed human smuggling exercise. Before the bill, he would get his nice boat back and go about and be able to do more smuggling. So at the end of the day, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what I am decrying is that in many instances, the data protection bill being another one, we put these things on the website. The public engages with us aggressively. We take their views into consideration. But it seems that either on the morning of or on the stage is when we hear from the other side. Now, that may be unkind, right? But that's just a pet peeve I've had for the last 4 years, because I didn't expect it. I expected engagement over important legislation enacted for the peace, order, and good governance of this country by legislators. I expected that if this was as important as it clearly is, that we would have gotten the communication well before today, and we've gotten these details which we could engage with, and which everyone can engage with on a purpose, so that it's not said, I may be more legally inclined than them. That is what has troubled me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I'm sorry that I'm getting it off my chest at this time, but that is what has troubled me for the last 4 years. It seems to be all written for a show, and that's not right, and it cannot be right. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that this bill be read a second time and committed so that we can have the ability to criminalize smugglers who are killing people in dangerous adventures, and who we will be able to step up and be enlisted by our neighbor in the north, because they're very, very aggressive with getting things done. I don't think they're going to order strikes on boats, as they do for drug trafficking, but clearly we have an obligation to stop irregular migrant flows to them. And this vessel, the vessels they give us, the radars they give us, are one aspect of it, but this law to criminalize this conduct is closing the loop, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Is there a seconder? The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Member.
Honourable Member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I trust I will address some of the concerns that's been expressed. If I don't, I could very specifically respond to them if it is necessary. Madam Speaker, each day I rise in this honorable House, I'm grateful for the privilege of representing the good people of Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador. And I am thankful for the work we do here on behalf of all Bahamians to grow our economy, to empower our people, and to promote at all times, the security and the sovereignty of our nation. As you know, Madam Speaker, our small island state is in reality also a big ocean state, covering more than 100,000 square miles. The difficulty of detecting and policing criminal activity in these vast waters has been exploited for hundreds of years. Think of the raiding and looting of Spanish ships back in the 1700s. Think about the rum running during Prohibition, and prior to that, the acts of piracy in the 1700s and 1800s. Or later, a pipeline to move illicit drugs northward. Today, Madam Speaker, networks seek to profit from human suffering. And when we think about the smuggled, think about their circumstance and their status, the smuggled. They are, most of them are desperate men and women and children from whom the criminal network seek to profit, using these same traditional corridors that dates back to the 1700s. The bill we have before us, the Smuggling of Migrants Bill 2025, targets these criminals directly. This bill makes it clear to prosecute smugglers and punishes them with harsher penalties than ever before. This is how we protect Bahamian communities on all of our islands. And this is how we rule our waters. And this is how we reduce the number of migrants who enter our country. Madam Speaker, to our south, there are nations in severe distress, suffering serious political instability, suffering from food insecurity, suffering from violence, and the prospect of even further economic collapse. That's what we have to nations to the south of us. Where we see tragedy, smugglers see business opportunity. Let me repeat that. Where we see tragedy, the smugglers see business opportunity. And transnational smuggling networks have become a big business. This bill makes it easier to prosecute and punish everyone involved. The bill strengthens our cooperation with our partners in the region. It extends Bahamian jurisdiction so that offenses connected to the Bahamas as an origin, transit point, or destination can be prosecuted even when the smuggling activities take place outside our territorial waters or on foreign flagged or stateless vessels. If you use our waters, if you use our islands or our jurisdiction as part of your criminal enterprise, we will come after you wherever you operate. It doesn't matter if you never stop or step foot on a boat in our waters. If you organize this activity, if you coordinated or funded it, if it is your boat or plane is in use, if you forge documents, you are a criminal under the law. This law in particular. Until now, our officers and prosecutors have had to piece together cases from provisions in the Penal Code, the Immigration Act, and other laws to capture the conduct of the smuggler. Smuggling rings require planning, financing, transportation, and harboring. Yet, our laws did not clearly define the chain of conduct as one offense with one set of strong penalties. This bill defines the smuggling of migrants as a crime distinct from immigration offenses and establishes that if you plan or organize the route, you can be charged. If you provide the vessel or the aircraft, you can be charged. If you supply false documents, you can be charged. If you provide safe houses or transportation inside the Bahamas, you can be charged. If you take payment at any point along the way, you can be charged. This applies whether the migrants are bound for the Bahamas, or passing through the Bahamas, or departing our islands for the United States or any other destination. And if you are convicted the consequences will be serious. Fines of up to $300,000, prison sentences up to 15 years, and confiscation of any vehicle or apparatus used in connection with either of those offenses. As was pointed out by the member from Freetown, this bill was tabled on October 15th, many weeks ago, and the full text has been online ever since. Yes, we invited the legal community, civil society, and ordinary citizens to read it and share their views. Some did so in good faith and shared suggestions. My government took the concerns and recommendations shared seriously, as we always do. We listen. In particular, there were concerns that the effect of some provisions will give migrants in our country illegally a new pathway to be here legally. It is not true, nor was that ever the intention. And we had been given legal guidance that that was the case. But we believed it important to amend the bill so as to remove any doubts whatsoever on that point. Hence, you heard the foreshadowing of moving, I think, Section 11. Even though, quite frankly, Madam Speaker, Section 11 ties quite ably in the point made by the member from East Grand Bahama. And so his thinking is inherently conflicting when you talk about what happens to the person, the migrant who's being smuggled, though he participated in getting there. But I'll come to that perhaps later on. So we've moved that Section 11, but where the bill outlined the humane treatment of migrants, where the bill outlined the humane treatment of migrants, it simply described how our officers already behave now in accordance with legal obligations and on our morality and faith. The humane treatment of migrants, as indicated, is only codifying what is already now being observed in accordance with our legal obligations, in accordance with our morality, and according to our faith, our Christian faith. You know, we admonish in biblical terms how we are to treat strangers amongst us. And the obligations follow that admonition. The issue of non-refoulement has been raised. Again, this is not about deporting migrants back into serious harm. This is nothing new. This is a moral and legal obligation that our law enforcement officials already follow. By deporting Haitians, for example, to locations outside of Port-au-Prince. So when we deport them, we don't send them to Port-au-Prince where the height of the challenges are. Under this government, so it could be clear, right? We have carried out more than 13,000 repatriations. So we know of what we speak. I believe that this is a record, Madam Speaker. Since we hit 13,000 plus. In 2022, our administration repatriated 4,748 migrants. In 2023, the figure rose to 4,954. By the middle of this year, the Minister of National Security was able to report that about the 13,000 I spoke about had been repatriated in less than 4 years. The record is there to show. At the same time, the number of detainees at Carmichael Road Detention Center has fallen dramatically at points to just a few dozen. And that is what happens when a government insists that all who are detained must be processed and returned quickly, instead of allowing numbers to build up and conditions to deteriorate. These accomplishments, Madam Speaker, are the result of efficient operations, stronger coordination between agencies, and investments in the tools required to intercept migrant vessels before they reach the Bahamian shores. We have invested millions in strengthening the Royal Bahamas Defense Force by refitting the HMBS Duard Knowles, introducing new patrol vessels, investing in repairs and upgrades for air surveillance, and building out our monitoring capacity through ongoing efforts to install new radars, allowing us to monitor our entire nation, Madam Speaker. That's what we have done. We have time and again demonstrated our seriousness on this issue. We have substantial investments in new technology, in surveillance and enforcement assets, in robust recruitment and professional training, and in strengthening critical partnerships. In 2022, Madam Speaker, at the Summit of Americas, the CARICOM countries were asked and being pressured to sign a declaration signed by other nations. Well, 20 of them signed it. 20 nations in our region eventually signed the declaration, agreeing to accept migrants into their country, particularly those from Venezuela, Nicaragua, Haiti. That's what was being put by the American government under President Biden. And when my colleagues, when they were signing it, they said, "Well, brave, you're not signing it." I said, I'm not signing it. I did not agree to sign it because our conditions and positions are completely different from theirs. And my first duty was to our citizens and to those who are here lawfully. So we didn't sign on to that declaration because I understand what my duties are to my country and my people. That's when he was announcing that he was going to accept 30,000 migrants a month, I think. I can sign on to that. A lot of my colleagues look at me with scorned eyes. They say, "But you're saying no?" They're saying no. Hell no. Minister of Foreign Affairs was there with me.
Yeah, I said something else.
Yeah. He did say something else. So this bill, see, and let me say another thing. The United Nations, right after that, Summit of America, and we were signing, asking us to be a part of that declaration. Later, the United Nations called on countries, and in particular the Bahamas, to suspend deportations to Haiti. And we refused that as well. Hence, we could say that we have deported 18,000 persons. Others stop. We continue, and we continue this day. Madam Speaker, you know, our politics is such that that people, you know, we latch on to these emotive issues without understanding the facts. We have to very often appreciate that most of these are migrants, they're still human beings. We don't need to beat our chests or every time we deport and people take the cameras down to the airport and take pictures and say, look what we're doing. But the Bahamian people have to appreciate that we know our job and we are doing our job. And my refusal to sign on the declaration to allow migrants to come to this country, my refusal to stop deportation, speaks to where we are on this matter. And so this bill, Madam Speaker, builds on a very strong and a very clear record of protecting our waters and our people and our sovereignty. And what this bill does is straightforward. It defines smuggling in this new bill. Now, let me give you an example. Maybe East Grand Bahama could help me with this one. You ever heard about smuggling drugs? Ever heard about smuggling drugs? How is that defined in our law? It's not defined as smuggling. It calls possession. It talks about import and export. So smuggling is not particularly a term of art in respect to all offenses. But we're now making smuggling of migrants a specific offense. All right? So, and that's what this is about, Madam Speaker. It sets out who can be charged for smuggling. Right? It establishes serious penalties. It sets out what I call the conduct or the activity engaged in by persons that could amount to smuggling. And basically, it's really defined where persons are attempting to bring people into the country illegally or having them landed in the country illegally. That's the context in which it's laid. And as I said, it establishes serious penalties. It preserves every power this country already has to arrest, detain, and repatriate persons who breach our laws. So if the smuggled migrant is breaking our laws, they'll face it under the laws that presently exist. The act doesn't exclude them from not being charged because this bill is directed at the smuggler, the organized network, the persons who are exploiting the migrant who's desperate and trying to escape for a better life and or to escape from the violence that's occurring in their country and just trying to get away from their country for economic reasons or otherwise. This bill is not directed at them. We have laws to deal with those persons. This is directed at the person who's organizing to bring persons into this country to land them here illegally and or to ensure they're landed here. Let me just read that part of the act to make sure that it's clear. Where the act? Where the bill? So it is clear. Let me just be clear. The member from Freetown said it, but I think it's important for me again to repeat it, right? And this, as I said, this bill is directed at persons who engages in the smuggling of migrants. It's not directed at migrants. It's directed, well, I'll come to that, right? It's directed at a person who engages in the smuggling of migrants. That's what the bill is about, right? And for the purpose of Section 1, right, it's talking about the same person, the smuggler, who procures or attempts to procure the illegal entry or illegal landing of a migrant. That's what the bill is directed at the smuggler. All right. And so, Madam Speaker, once we have that in mind, right, the reason why it is directed at the smuggler, right, it still preserves every power this country has already for the migrant. Right?
If you look at Protocol 5, it says that you cannot criminalize the conduct of migrants. In Protocol 5, you're domestic. Remember, you're domesticating a treaty here.
Yeah. And I'm being pointed out. I think you didn't point this out. Right?
Yeah,
He read it. Okay. If you read the protocol, well, why didn't you say that then? See, you should get up and say, see, no.
But that's the obligation under the treaty.
And it's your obligations. No. Yes. And I'm not joining issue with you disagreeing. I'm not joining issue with your views on it. What I join issue with you is that having read the treaty and having understand our obligation under the treaty, you should say that we are obligated under this treaty, but I don't agree with that. That's what, see, be honest and fair. It matter. So under the, anyhow, that's my view on you. That's my view. Yeah. All right, but you just be full. Just be full. So, but I mean, but all I'm saying, East Grand Bahama, East Grand Bahama. What I'm saying to you, if you had put your views in that context, I would not have been as exercised over what you had to say.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. I would not have been as exercised. Madam Speaker, as I said, laws are in place for the migrant. I just repeat again, Madam Speaker, that we have invested millions in strengthening Defense Force communication systems and over $1 million more in drones to add with monitoring and patrolling. We also expanded manpower by hiring hundreds of immigration and Defense Force officers. Since the start of this year, we've already held multiple recruitment cycles for immigration officers. In fact, a recruitment cycle is happening right now. And I encourage any patriotic young Bahamian who are interested to apply. As we have built up manpower within immigration, we have also recruited over 570 Defense Force Marines to patrol our protected borders. Madam Speaker, if you want fewer migrants in the Bahamas, this bill helps achieve that because it targets the criminal networks that organize illegal routes. If you want smugglers to face long prison sentences and heavy fines, this bill delivers on that. If you want the Defense Force to stop suspicious vessels at sea with clear legal backing, this bill provides that. If you want to protect young Bahamians from being drawn into smuggling as an easy way to make money, this bill strengthens the hand of law enforcement to intervene and prosecute. We are tackling, Madam Speaker, complex immigration issues from multiple angles. The progress has been promising, but we also know that there's still a lot of work left to do. We have seen record highs of repatriations, record lows for landfalls and detention center occupancy, and record action on shanty towns. By many measures, we have done a better job in the past 4 years of protecting our borders than many larger and wealthier nations. Today, we add to that record by sending a clear message. If you are participating in or supporting human smuggling in any way, you will find yourself within the crosshairs of our justice system. You will be held accountable for the damage you have done to our nation by facilitating and illegal entrance of migrants within our borders. And I invite them to study this law. Look at the fines. Look at the prison terms. Look at the way it treats everyone in the chain, from planner to transporter to landlord. If you continue, you will be taking a very serious risk with your freedom, your family, and your assets. To any Bahamian who believes it is harmless to rent out rooms to people not here legally, to provide vehicles for their movement, or to lend a boat for a weekend trip that you know in your heart is illegal, I say this is a turning point. What might have felt like a side income will now carry consequences that can change your life. To migrants themselves, I say, do not place your lives or the lives of your children in the hands of criminals. They'll take your money, put you on an overloaded vessel, and send you into open water with little regard for whether you survive. If you come here in breach of our laws, you will be returned to your country of origin. The law of the land with respect to all undocumented migrants will continue to stand and to stand firm. Being a victim of human smuggling doesn't give anyone a right to stay here. Our asylum rules remain unchanged. Anyone stating otherwise is attempting to use scare tactics to stir up anger at a time when the public deserves truth instead of fear. Madam Speaker, the migration surges caused by economic and security crisis in other countries continues to drive illegal entry into our country and is a very, very serious problem. It is one we have chosen to face head-on with a national policy framework. We have a clear plan for irregular migrants and shanty towns. We have Operation Secure and a sustained defense force presence at sea. We have overseen record levels of repatriation. We choose to see court challenges through to the end, and we continue to demolish shanty towns. We now choose to strengthen the law against smugglers and those who help them. This is how our small island, big ocean state, is leading the way. Our responsibility is to hold the line for the Bahamas, to protect the security of our borders, to guard the cohesion of our communities, and to uphold the rule of law, and to show compassion without surrendering control. I want to thank the Minister of National Security, our Attorney General, the Minister of Immigration and National Insurance, as well as their teams for their leadership on this issue. I must also express my gratitude to the men and women of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and the Department of Immigration who work every day to protect this country and its borders. Their efforts have truly made a difference. This administration remains committed to supporting them in successfully carrying out their mandate. Today, through the Smuggling of Migrants Bill 2025, we have provided further support to our men and women on the front lines, and we are sending a clear message to those who engage in human smuggling and other illegal forms of migration. We will not allow criminal networks to use our islands as corridors. We will not allow lawlessness to challenge the safety and stability of our communities. We will not tolerate the exploitation of vulnerable people, and we will not compromise our sovereignty. Madam Speaker, I commend this bill to this honorable House and to the nation. One other matter, and I so move, Madam Speaker, the second one. If I could just speak specifically to the issue of why the bill does not deal with the migrant. Firstly, listen. So I just want to say, Madam Speaker, that one, the other laws to deal with the migrant, and that migrant is not going to be scot-free. If they come in and they landed illegally, they will be charged for being here, for illegal landing. If they're here and they're unable to demonstrate that they came in legally, they'll be dealt with as being here illegally. The issue with the migrant and the smuggler is that if you charge both of them on the act, could you tell me how we could get a conviction if they're both charged under the act? You see, what you talking about criminal law? It's a, so, you see, we're talking about the smuggling now, and insofar as the smuggling act, you need them to be your witness to establish your case.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the second time and committed. A bill for an act to strengthen border security and international cooperation, to prevent and combat migrant smuggling, to provide measures for the protection of smuggled immigrants, to prescribe penalties for offenses of migrant smuggling, and for matters connected therewith. As many. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Regret the member for Cat Island is leaving the precincts at the moment. I didn't plan at this stage of the presentation to address this point. It tackles the very point that he ended on, that there are laws in the Bahamas that protect against the violation of our laws by persons who have illegally landed. Madam Speaker, under this administration, the laws have been applied directly opposite to what the Prime Minister has just asserted. I read, Madam Speaker, from one of the detainee profiles, a document that I'd be happy to show members opposite. I wish not to read these persons' name into the record, but I'd be more than happy to show them. But from the detainee profile detailed report, Madam Speaker, the surname is listed and all of the relevant information. The above subject initially stated that he entered the Bahamas by unknown vessel in the month of September 2019. Mr. name redacted, then retracted his statement and now insists that he came by aircraft. However, he has no evidence of his second claim, and his supposed crossing could not be found. In the other case, Madam Speaker, the subject did not produce evidence of a legal landing. That is, in the case of the air claim that he made, that he came by air. Therefore, I recommend that he be prosecuted for illegal landing. It is then signed by the officer and then dated. Madam Speaker, the report goes, it then goes on. Again, detainee profile detailed report. Same person, Madam Speaker. Subject arrived in the Bahamas on the 30th of the 6th month of 2019 and was landed for 90 days. Madam Speaker, he received, again, he then exits until the 20th of the 1st month of 2020 and was arrested on the 11th of the 10th month, 2022, for overstaying. He was deported on the 16th of the 10th month, 2022. Woman WP is the initial use here, the acronym used here, was approved on the 17th of the 10th, 2022. And in notation in the margin, behind that statement, it says, by minister. No decision letter scanned, issued, and collected. The 18th of the 10th, 2022. Please note that instructions were given to restrict the individual. It's an officer reporting on a person who landed, changed his story, again, interdicted. Decisions were made by the state. Nevertheless, it says in this, was approved on the 17th, again, the 10th month, 2022 by Minnesota. Madam Speaker, I have several of these, Madam Speaker, that I would like to get to before I conclude, Madam Speaker. And so, again, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister says, under other laws that exist, not this particular bill before us, these matters could be dealt with. What this clearly shows is that, no, these matters are not dealt with, because you could have politicians who intervene in circumstances, Madam Speaker, and persons can be in the detention center where they don't have ability to make application and still get approved, Madam Speaker, that someone else submits an application on their behalf. And so what I brought, Madam Speaker, is just the documentary evidence of that, and I will give several examples to show that the law does not apply in the way it ought to under this administration, Madam Speaker, when it comes to immigration matters. But I'll come back to that. Madam Speaker, today we are debating, Madam Speaker, the Smuggling of Migrants Bill 2025, Monday, December the 8th, Madam Speaker. What is interesting about this bill is from the beginning, this administration is now trying to reverse its position. The first time we heard of the amendment, Madam Speaker, was while the member for Freetown was on his feet. So he sought to eliminate this government, again, they are seeking to eliminate Section 11, which they know, and we have indicated to them in writing prior to his announcement today, and the public has indicated to them that they have a severe problem with that particular section of the bill. So this administration now has come, Madam Speaker, again, responding to the backlash of the community to take out the section, Madam Speaker. And I will show in just a moment, Madam Speaker, that in taking out that section where they gave, again, Madam Speaker, where they were in the process of giving immunity to, and I want to read that section just so the public can remember what it is that they're taking out. Without prejudice to the applicability of any other law establishing a criminal offense, a smuggled migrant shall not be liable to criminal prosecution under the Act with respect of A, illegal entry into the receiving country or transit country, B, remaining illegally in the receiving country or transit country, and C, possessing a fraudulent travel or identity document. Where such an act is a direct consequence of the smuggling of the migrant alleged to have been committed or found to have been committed by the court, the migrant is a victim of the criminal conduct prohibited under this part. That's what this says. So that's what the government is now come to try remove the rat that they have unleashed by introducing this bill with full knowledge of the import and impact of that section, Madam Speaker. So again, we say both to the member for Freetown and to the member for Cat Island, our difficulty is not with the section of the bill that criminalizes a smuggler. We support that. What we do not support is that the bill does not address the issue of the person who they say are a victim who is being smuggled. We say when you pay the smuggler who is to be criminalized, you are seeking to again circumvent the laws of this country, and you too are subject to punishment. I ask you a question just in terms of simple math. Which is the majority? The smuggler who's organizing it, or those that come on the vessel? Which one is the majority? Is it one person who's captaining the ship? Or is it 50 people who are on the ship? They are seeking to criminalize only a part of the equation. We ask them, whatever happened to, again, prosecuting both, Madam Speaker? And so they said, here's an interesting statement that they made that sounds cute, but is empty. If you use our land and waters, we will come after you. That's what the Prime Minister said. Well, the truth of the matter is, the section they took out and with full forethought had put in, it contradicts this statement. If you use fraudulent documents, if you reside undocumented, we'll come after you. That's the chorus they sought to create. The section that they are now being forced to take out, Madam Speaker, it flies in the face of that. So having been caught, as they normally are caught, Madam Speaker, then they make adjustments, dry eye, and not, again, with any full-throated apology and repentance. Because even on their feet, they said, well, you know, even if we had left this section, it's no big deal, because there's no prejudice. Well, clearly, the public doesn't read it the same way. Madam Speaker, the bill in its present draft is open to many interpretations of its intent. And so, Madam Speaker, we believe that it is, would have been a more useful exercise that while this government criminalized the smuggler, that it would have, in advance of introducing this bill, do an audit of the existing bills that relate to this subject, not just of smuggling, but of the violation of immigration law, so that they can have a more fulsome, again, approach to addressing what is now a very serious, it's been a crisis in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Those acts, Madam Speaker, should have included the Trafficking in Persons Act, Madam Speaker, the Proceeds of Crime Act, the Passport Act, Madam Speaker. All of these are relevant and should have been addressed. And so, Madam Speaker, we agree that uncontrolled and illegal immigration should... Well, Madam Speaker, we can continue at 3. I don't have a difficulty with that. If you, yeah. Sorry.
Second.
Oh, no problems. I don't ever resist a moment to talk about the hypocrisy of the PLP.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, uncontrolled and illegal.
Moved and seconded that the business of this House proceed beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of this House will now proceed beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
Madam Speaker, uncontrolled and illegal immigration is not a talking point. It's a threat to our national security, our social stability, and the Bahamian way of life. Madam Speaker, this is a country that in large measure has been built by persons who've hailed from around the world. So we have no fundamental difficulty with anyone who hails from another country. An examination of many of our surnames, Madam Speaker, would point to that. What we are concerned about, Madam Speaker, is illegal migration and bad actors in the system who facilitated and broken systems that we failed to correct. So our discussion today, Madam Speaker, is not to demonize anyone or any particular group, Madam Speaker, because many members in this House and previous Houses for over 100 years came from various jurisdictions. What we're saying is people ought to come in the correct way if they wish to enjoy the benefits of, again, full citizenship or any status that has been assigned, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our borders are, in fact, being tested, and our communities are feeling the strain. And the borders, again, both persons who come by air as well as come by sea. And Madam Speaker, Bahamians are watching not just boats, but they are watching planes land. They know when stories break that it's only a tip of the iceberg, Madam Speaker, and they continue to see those gatekeepers not execute their duties in terms of tackling rising numbers of persons who do not have a right, Madam Speaker, to take full benefit of the Bahamian way of life, Madam Speaker. And so the question is that many Bahamians continue to ask who's really in control and in whose interest are gatekeepers, policymakers, and others acting. So when a bill comes to the House under the title of smuggling of migrants, Bahamian people expect that it would speak to this in a fulsome way. As I mentioned before, this government seeks only to speak to about the smuggler, but not those who are complicit on the vessels and have paid, Madam Speaker, to circumvent the system. We cannot understand this omission. However, Section 11, many Bahamians believe that explains why there was that omission. But you see, the speech that was written recently and presented today didn't take account, Madam Speaker, that they were going to take out that particular section. And that's why there's a contradiction between their chorus of, if you're found with documents, if you seek to use, again, the country, it's land or sea, for illegal purposes, we're coming for you. Well, Madam Speaker, Section 11 points to either their motive or lack of proper oversight that put them in a position where they draft and must now remove it, Madam Speaker. They expect, this administration, they expect this public to overlook at how selectively they deal with this very important issue. The people of the Bahamas expect that the government will restore order at the borders and confidence in a system that is badly broken and far too many bad actors are a part of it. The government says this bill will strengthen our borders. It does not. They say it will target and reduce human smuggling. It does not. They say it will close gaps in the law. Well, it also opens some loopholes. But, Madam Speaker, that's what their attempt to, and we hope they follow through on it. It's hard to tell, by eliminating Section 11. This bill, Madam Speaker, we saw it as being unsafe, unclear in some sections, and dangerous for the Bahamas. Madam Speaker, we expect that they would have come to fix a broader problem. The Free National Movement is clear. This bill should not be a patch job. In our view, they should have simply withdrawn this bill, look at the compendium of legislation related to things like human trafficking, Madam Speaker, the Passport Act, as I said before, the Proceeds of Crime Act, and in a fulsome way come back to this Parliament to deal with this issue. Madam Speaker, human trafficking and smuggling are already illegal in the Bahamas. The offenses exist. The framework is in place. And as I said before, what is missing, Madam Speaker, is the criminalizing of those who have paid to come to the Bahamas. And it isn't just the smuggler who must be criminalized, but those who, Madam Speaker, are paid. And so this administration continues to, again, skirt this issue. Madam Speaker, what is interesting is they cited other pieces of legislation, the Immigration Act, they say gives them the power to address those issues that we're concerned about, not addressed here. What they didn't say while they were saying that, Madam Speaker, is that until they remove Section 11, this bill also says, the bill before us today says, that this bill supersedes all other legislation. So in other words, Madam Speaker, my understanding of it is that if we maintain this, where people are protected or provided immunity, then again, this bill would have superseded it, Madam Speaker. They can speak to that, Madam Speaker, as we wish they had done long before today, Madam Speaker. What is missing with this administration is sufficient enforcement, Madam Speaker, competence, Madam Speaker, and the political will to end a culture of lawlessness and political interference. If there are specific gaps in the law, identify the gaps, Madam Speaker, in simple language that the public can understand to see whether or not they agree with it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, instead of fixing that, the government is using the bill to look busy while avoiding the work of cleaning up a broken system and removing bad actors. Have they removed many of the consultants, the immigration consultants, Madam Speaker, who seem to be able to get work permits that they can farm out long before the workers are identified, Madam Speaker? Are they removing the bad actors in the system, Madam Speaker? Just a few months ago, the Prime Minister stood before the Bahamian people and told us that there was no immigration crisis. At the same time, his government, Madam Speaker, was removing yet another director of immigration. This is the government playing musical chairs with leadership while the House is on fire. It is a public contradiction. Madam Speaker, if there is no crisis, why the constant upheaval at the top of the department? If all is under control, why the quiet shuffling of directors behind closed doors? If all is well, Madam Speaker, why victimize senior immigration officers, forcing some, as some members of the public say, into retirement, who speak up or ask ministers pointed questions concerning decisions they are making, Madam Speaker? The truth is simple. The system is in chaos, in part because we have mismanagement and political interference. Yes, Madam Speaker, there's also a culture that we have to correct that involves more than just the policymaker. But we must have the will to address it, Madam Speaker. And it is, this system, Madam Speaker, is crying out for serious reform, not cosmetic changes and new titles. Where's as a result of the investigations the Prime Minister promised relative to the number of immigration matters that surfaced around the time that they were, in our view, victimizing senior immigration officers who spoke up, Madam Speaker. The FNM has just raised an issue today by the statement I read, Madam Speaker, that we raised some time ago in the front of Monarch House, in the front of immigration, in 2 separate demonstrations. Madam Speaker, that demonstrates that we didn't just arrive at the position we have taken today. For those who think it's a recent development, I remind the public there are several actions that we have taken because we have been concerned about this administration and its handling of immigration. We've been raising the alarm for years while this government ignored warnings not just by us but many other groups who stood up to them. In February 2023, I led efforts in this House to establish a select committee on immigration. We warned them then that the country was reaching a tipping point on illegal immigration. We said politicians must not sit idly by and hope the situation resolves itself. The Prime Minister and his members blocked that effort, Madam Speaker. We warned that unregulated migration threatens our sovereignty and our public services. I told the House that unregulated migration, Madam Speaker, from any country, including from where our brothers and sisters hail to the south of us, Madam Speaker, puts pressure on our security, our healthcare system, our schools, our social services, and our economy. Madam Speaker, in our view, the response by the government dismissed those concerns. And we remind them, as they try to sing this song about Christian values, we have been on the forefront of challenging any abuse of any migrant in the country, Madam Speaker. The record is clear on that we believe everyone should be treated in a humane way. We also believe, Madam Speaker, that gatekeepers should honor their obligation to do just that, protect the gates. And that is what our concern is today. Madam Speaker, our deputy leader warned about unfair competition and the strain on Bahamian workers and businesses because this administration had no clear plan to tackle illegal migration. He said illegal Haitian migration would continue to escalate if the government did not act, and they did not. In 2023, we exposed serious concerns that Bahamian laws were being ignored by the Immigration Department itself. An internal email from the Director of Immigration asked why people were being sworn in as citizens without renouncing other citizenships in direct conflict with the Bahamas Nationality Act. Madam Speaker, I remember during that time I also raised the question that we had persons within the department asking the question, the minister, the then minister, the member for Carmichael, had cabinet conclusions, which we understand were necessary, to make some of the decisions that he was making. This was supposed to be, in our view, a part of the investigation that the Prime Minister would have spoken to, Madam Speaker. We formally requested a select committee to investigate. Again, the government blocked it. Outside this chamber, we have taken this fight to the streets. And to the people, Madam Speaker, we held a demonstration on Hawkins Hill. We held one at Monarch House. We have put questions on the record, dozens and dozens of questions on the record of the House of Assembly. We held press conferences. We held a town meeting. And they refuse, Madam Speaker, for all of that to answer questions. So I find it laughable when they tell this cockamamie story about the Carmichael Village project. Madam Speaker, I wouldn't digress just to say they can't explain where the $20 million went relative to that project. And we asked them, we challenged them to lay the document. And how is it if mortgage payments were going to pay back the loan, they now have to, again, put $20.2 million, bringing it to a full exposure of $40.2 million. How is it that they have to go that route? But that's a matter for a different day, Madam Speaker. Every step of the way, we have said the same thing relative to immigration. The system is broken. Persons who have been here for many years and deserve status, Madam Speaker, are being passed over because of new arrivals, Madam Speaker, that's being facilitated by the system and some people. We need to get to the bottom of how the system is not working and who the bad actors are, Madam Speaker. We make no apology for raising our voice, Madam Speaker, in defense of a system that has integrity and to protect the masses of persons who are living, who are doing their job the right way in the immigration department, in the police department, and other areas, but whose names are being sullied by the few who are making unethical and illegal decisions, Madam Speaker, and this administration doesn't have a sense of urgency to address that issue, Madam Speaker. And so, again, the failures of this government, Madam Speaker, are visible to the world. I hear them cite the report issued by the United States. Why don't they tell all the story about all the reports? Again, we read into the record before, Madam Speaker, that there was a U.S. official who said openly that the Bahamas has relaxed immigration enforcement and has become a launching point for migrants, Madam Speaker, trying to reach Florida. One sheriff said using the Bahamas as a staging ground to get to the United States. Madam Speaker, if they want to cite stuff, just try to be comprehensive in what you cite. Commentators, Madam Speaker, have warned that the Bahamas is, in fact, becoming a site where smuggling operations have become an intricate part of it. Chinese nationals and others are flying here legally, contends, and then paying criminal organizations to smuggle them into Florida by boat. Madam Speaker, I just brought some documents so that in the event that anyone is in a popping up mood, we're able just to lay the documents relative to the points that I'm citing. This is, Madam Speaker, is not a theory. 3 vessels linked to our shores were intercepted, Madam Speaker. About 30 undocumented Chinese nationals were detained, including minors. 168 kilos of cocaine were seized. 5 Bahamians were arrested in separate human smuggling attempts. 3 more Bahamians were arrested in Florida over related charges, Madam Speaker. At the same time, Madam Speaker, leaked correspondence showed that this government knew the Immigration Department was ignoring some basic requirements of the Bahamas Nationality Act. Madam Speaker, this is a critical issue, and while it has straddled multiple administrations, Madam Speaker, these matters I cite, Madam Speaker, this administration knows full well of the impact it's having, yet in our view, they have not done sufficient. They are in the chair. They have a responsibility to fix it, Madam Speaker. And so people, Madam Speaker, were being sworn in as citizens without proper renunciation. And so, Madam Speaker, I've already cited that issue, but let me just point out, Madam Speaker, the conflict that exists even within the cabinet, the Davis-Cooper cabinet, Madam Speaker. You would recall, Madam Speaker, the case of the workers at the British colonial Hilton, Madam Speaker, who were released from custody and sent back to work after the intervention of the then Minister of Immigration, Madam Speaker. Even though officers had identified irregularities, the minister then blamed the Minister of Tourism. The truth, Madam Speaker, again, he said, my colleague called me and, what you expect a brother to do. No, he didn't quite put it that way, but that's essentially what the approach was, Madam Speaker, just that flippantly. He and his colleague, Madam Speaker, they then had a back and forth relative to that, but he sought to throw his colleague under the bus, Madam Speaker. We still don't know what all the facts are relative to that issue. What we do know is that those persons who could not find documentation, where it was confirmed that they were that at least 2 of them were in the country illegally or overstayed, what we do know is it was cured. That's what this administration said. They cured all of those situations. We don't know how, Madam Speaker, but they cured it. And so now, Madam Speaker, there's a sweeping federal case in the United States where a police officer has alleged that an unnamed high-ranking Bahamian politician authorized the involvement of Bahamian law enforcement officers in a scheme to facilitate cocaine shipments to the United States, Madam Speaker. 13 defendants had been charged, Madam Speaker. A former chief petty officer has already pleaded guilty to cocaine importation conspiracy. Madam Speaker, this is an administration that loves to talk about who is inflicting reputational damage on the country, Madam Speaker. But we don't see sufficient actions by them overseeing this system and administrating the system in a way that they wish to end systemic dysfunction or irregularities or loopholes in the system and working diligently to remove factors, Madam Speaker. We do not see sufficient evidence from them in this regard. Madam Speaker, I've already touched on the point that they have conflated, Madam Speaker, the smuggling definition, Madam Speaker, with the trafficking definition. We are clear in what our position is with respect to that. Both the smuggler and those who pay to be smuggled must both be addressed. This bill does not do it. The original provisions of immunity under Section 11, Madam Speaker, was wrong, and we believe, for all their talk of how brilliant they are and their understanding of the law, we believe they knew exactly what they were doing, Madam Speaker, and only pure outrage by Bahamians have caused them now to come and make an adjustment, Madam Speaker, and we wish to see that adjustment, Madam Speaker. We wish to see that fully realized. And so, Madam Speaker, as I take my seat, let me just say, this government has an opportunity to send a clear message that it is prepared to protect whistleblowers. So this whole business, Madam Speaker, of avoiding providing protection in a whole series of areas, but instead going after. We saw it in the case of, I mentioned earlier, where the Prime Minister was more concerned when the former Director of Immigration, again, when that letter surfaced, more concerned about how the information got out rather than the fact that the information was in the public domain. We are concerned about whistleblowers, and this administration will get more information to plug the gaps in the system, to remove bad actors, to the extent that they make Bahamians and others feel comfortable that if they were to come forward and say who exactly is providing fraudulent documents, who is transporting monies and documents, more Bahamians, Madam Speaker, will come forward because they believe they are protected by the Commonwealth of the Bahamas government, Madam Speaker. And we don't see that level of commitment. And so, Madam Speaker, as my colleagues would address, we have again introduced Project Shield, Madam Speaker, which is, again, our contribution, Madam Speaker, to addressing the immigration dysfunction. One, to secure our borders. H, heighten surveillance. Investigate political abuse. End unfairness. Limit approvals to the law. And disclose data, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with those few words, I make the point again, Madam Speaker. This bill, Madam Speaker, confuse trafficking and smuggling, weakens deterrent, open new loopholes, Madam Speaker, and we are glad that the minister, though they haven't gone far enough by simply removing the bill, we are glad that they see the error of their ways, or at least fear the wrath of the Bahamian people, that they sought to remove Section 11 of this bill. Marco City Rest, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Fox Hill.
Just on a point before the suspension now, I heard that a police officer made allegations of corruption or something about drug smuggling in some case, something? Did you say that? Because the police made the allegation? What I know is... No, I'm bringing it up now. Because my recollection is there's a case been brought in the States. There's been no trial, so there's been no evidence led at all. So no one, as far as I've known, made any allegation except what was in this particular indictment or record of this case that they brought. And I would also say, Madam Speaker, that you only have to just look at the comment of the now leader of the United States, about the district in New York where the case was brought and what he thought about that district. And I say no more.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
I intend to speak on the resumed sitting, which will be 3 p.m., I assume.
Thank you.
The member mentions the United States. Obviously, he and the member for Freetown are in conflict now in terms of their attempt to appeal to the U.S. But this is the same member, Madam Speaker, who's made any number of comments about the neighbor to the north, bringing into question, in my view, his confidence in the word of the person he cites. So I find it rich that he is now citing that same president comments as it relates to the District of New York. Again, one of the reasons I stand on this point is that we've said before, that the member for Fox Hill and the Prime Minister, they come across more as defense attorneys for persons accused than persons who want the law to be upheld, Madam Speaker, and that is worrisome for persons who sit in the chair that they sit.
You talk too much.
As many, the chair recognizes the honourable member for Central Grand Bahama, and I think we are going into the break.
Yeah, thank you. I thought you agreed to. Thank you. Oh, my apologies. I'll be brief. I won't be that long. What is the position? What's the position? You're the leader. What's the position? 15 minutes.
Your side moved the resolution to go till 3.
Central Grand Bahama, how long?
15 minutes, Madam Speaker, but if they insist that we break now, then we'll break.
We going beyond 2
No, we ain't going 2, 3. I understand there's a personal circumstance for Central Grand Bahama that we're prepared to accommodate. It being 15 minutes.
Okay.
Speaker, I'll be brief.
Thank
you very much. I'll be brief as usual. Madam Speaker, since I may not be here on Wednesday, I stand on behalf of the good people of Central Grand Bahama, and unfortunately the member for Cat Island, Rumkey and San Salvador is not here, but I'll take 2 minutes to express appreciation to him. On yesterday in my small hometown of Waterkey that no one remembers, while in church yesterday, the Prime Minister showed up to the small community of Waterkey, to all of our surprise. And I believe he's the first Prime Minister in the history of the Bahamas to visit my hometown. And for that,
Good man.
he put some things on the floor of the church and got hold into those promises. So once again, even though he's not here, I just want to, on behalf of the community of Waterkey, I want us to really express our gratitude to him for visiting us yesterday and restoring some hope. Madam Speaker, I rise to contribute today to the debate on the smuggling of migrant bill 2025. Madam Speaker, let me be clear. From the onset, as I said earlier, I did not come here to rubber stamp legislation because it sounds good internationally. I came here to examine how this law touches the pockets and safety and the future of the Bahamian people, and specifically, as I always do, the people of Grand Bahama. Madam Speaker, we are looking at a piece of legislation that is, in my view, is double-edged. On one edge, it promises to cut down the criminal network that uses our waters as a highway for human misery. But on the other edge, Madam Speaker, if we are not careful, if we do not amend the bill before we pass it, the sword is going to cut the hands of the Bahamian taxpayer. Madam Speaker, some are calling it a security bill. Listen to the talk on the streets. Some are calling it an asylum bill. Yes. Some are calling it a burden bill. It is good to hear that Section 11 will be removed, Madam Speaker. And as I asked the minister who presented the bill this morning, if the word non-refoulement exists itself or the interpretation of the word non-refoulement exists. I wasn't clear on his answer, but I believe if it's not there, then we need to take it out. But he said the word does exist in law now. Madam Speaker, as I look through the eyes of the struggling Bahamian. We are telling the world. And this is something that my other colleagues raised. If you come here on your own, on your own in the sloop, you are a criminal. But if you pay an enterprise $5,000 to bring you, suddenly you become a victim. And I can't wrap my mind around the difference. It appears as if you are immune from prosecution.
The law doesn't say that, Aaron.
We are not, well, that's my interpretation of the bill, and again, it's time to be corrected. According to the bill,
There are existing laws in place to deal with
I am saying, if that is the case, are we not inadvertently incentivizing smuggling? If we care, it says care cannot be refused, Madam Speaker, to anyone who comes here by some criminal activity. We must give them urgent medical care. And of course, yes, we are a Christian nation, and we will not leave people on the streets. Madam Speaker, one of the issues that I have in Central Grand Bahama, we rely on the Rand Memorial Hospital. The Rand, and that's only an example, is already stretched to capacity. The doctors are overworked. Our beds are limited or non-existent. People who pay NIB, who pays VAT, sometimes have to wait for hours for care. Now, the bill creates a statutory obligation for the Public Hospital Authority to treat every smuggled migrant with, and this is my issue right here, no cap on the cost and no mechanism for reimbursement. And it goes further, Madam Speaker, it mandates access to education. Madam Speaker, our schools in Grand Bahama, and I stand to be corrected, already overloaded. Bahamians are fighting for resources. Teachers have to buy their own chalk and paper. I understand because they come to my shop. The bill says that if a smuggling boat lands with 50 children, the Ministry of Education must absorb them. That's in the bill. My highline stance is this. One thing we cannot legislate, Madam Speaker, is generosity. And we cannot legislate generosity that we cannot afford. We cannot place a burden on the Bahamian taxpayers to solve an international crisis, especially when our own social safety net have holes.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Freetown.
The medical care is emergency medical care that there's an obligation everywhere. If you go to the U.S. and you're the subject of a medical emergency, that's all you will get. He's suggesting that this is introduced by the bill, and that is misleading. It's already existing. We already exist an obligation to provide education.
It's mentioned in this bill, if it exists already. And again, the point I was raising also is that not only are they required to present them medical care, there's no cap. And there's no cap, so whatever care they need, whatever care they need, no matter how expensive it is, we have to take care of it. But according to the bill, that's what I'm understanding, and that there's no way for us to get paid back in any way. So there's some certain circumstances, but I think if you want to spell out children, pregnancy, delivery, let's spell it out. But we can't just have an open check. That is an area that I see a loophole, an opening, and I'm asking for clarification. And if it exists, let's see how we can fix that. Madam Speaker, there's some part of the bill that I totally agree with. We cannot continue, Madam Speaker, with the status quo. And see, the reason why I support part of the bill the principle is that despite my concern, I find my support in part two. For too long, like some of the previous speakers said, we have been catching the small fish and letting the sharks swim free. Yes. We catch the captain of the boat, usually a Bahamian or a foreign, and we deport him or put him in jail. But the organizer, the man in the air-conditioned office who bought the fuel, the man who collects the money, he sleeps soundly in his bed. Clause 6 changes that. It targets the organizers and directors. It brings fines of $250,000 and 7 years in prison. And these are the teeth, Madam Speaker, that has been missing. So I commend you on including those portions in the bill. Madam Speaker, also the Safe House crackdown. Let's talk about the clause of harboring, as I mentioned earlier. This is uncomfortable. But it must be said, smuggling is not just happening on the water. It is happening on the land. It is happening in safe houses, tucked away in our communities. It is happening in rental cars, moving people from spot to spot, from beaches to thatch houses. It criminalizes the facilitation network. It says to the person renting that room, if you are hiring these people for profit, you are not a bystander. You are a smuggler, and you will face 2 years in prison.
Yes.
This is necessary to clean up our communities.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, with respect to aggravated offense, we have seen too many tragedies in the waters of Grand Bahama. We have seen bodies wash up on the shores because of greedy captains picking up 60-plus people in a small boat with no life vest. As a young child growing up, I'm not sure if West Grand Bahama is old enough to remember this. There was a major tragedy of West Grand Bahama where migrants from the south, they recovered 20 bodies. And as a young child, that traumatized me. 20 bodies drowned right off West End. And I remember them bringing them to the Williamstown area where I usually spend my summer. To me, that was tragic.
Yes.
So persons who engage in those activities, we cannot go light on them.
No.
If you are endangering, if you endanger life, if you mistreat humans like cargo, the penalty goes up to 15 years. Yeah. That is the hardline justice we need. Madam Speaker, I have to speak about the Grand Bahama impact. I must speak now specifically for my island. Our island is unique. We are not usually, Madam Speaker, the final destination. We are the transit hub. We are the jumping off point to the United States. This geography puts us in a unique danger regarding the bill, something I will call the bottleneck effect. Madam Speaker, if we pass this bill without amendments, I propose Grand Bahama will become a holding pen. Migrants intercepted off West End or Lucayo will be brought to the city of Freeport under Clause 13. They may be granted temporary residence to assist with investigations. They're under 11, and I'm happy that you moved that. They would have been immune from prosecution.
Exactly.
So and they would have sit in jail. And under that, if Section 11 was not removed, they would not. You must clarify it.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
You must clarify it.
You know, I've heard Marco City said this when I was checking on the move, and I've heard it again now. And Marco City read it and said, without prejudice to basically any other law you could be charged under. Yeah. You can't be charged under this one. East Grand Bahama says he doesn't agree with Clause 5 of the protocol. Yeah. If you don't enact the protocol, you can't have none of it. Yeah. No, that's not true. You can't have any of it. You cannot have any of it. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Members.
I challenge East Grand Bahama when he is on his feet to point out any crime that a migrant can commit under the bill. That can commit under the bill at all. But for Central Grand Bahama, before I was rudely interrupted by the other opposition, is that without prejudice means that there are, in fact, other offenses that you can be charged with, and we pointed out what they are.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Any other law. In fact, even it should not supersede the government's constitution. It should not. But this is an infraction of our constitution. Madam Speaker, the burden of Grand Bahama, again, if a court case takes 2 years to come to bear, that's a burden. The cost of the delay could create an economical impact. I want to flag again, Madam Speaker, Clause 12. The boat captain operators and mail boat operators, it places a heavy duty on captains to verify documents with a $150,000 fine for failure. Grand Bahama relies on maritime trade. We cannot have a situation, Madam Speaker, where a legitimate mail boat captain is bankrupt because he is fooled by a high-quality fake visa. We need to ensure there are protections for honest behaving business owners. Part 4, recommendation, the smugglers pay. Madam Speaker, I cannot in good conscience sit down without offering a solution. I'm calling on the government to accept hard-line amendments to this bill. We need to turn this from a burden to a benefit. The smugglers pay, Madam Speaker, principle. We must amend clause number 10, which refers to ancillary penalties. Currently, the bill allows the court to seize the smugglers' assets, their boats, their cash, their bank account, on all of their goods. But where does the money go? Into the consolidated fund, or where does it disappear? I'm asking the question. I propose, Madam Speaker, I'm talking about a solution. We're not just pointing out issues. I often come here with solutions. I propose we create a statutory migrant victim rehabilitation fund. Every dollar seized from a smuggler must go into that fund. When the Rand Memorial Hospital treats a migrant who's just passing through, not staying, the fund pays the bill, not the taxpayer. It's enough on us. When the child is at school, the fund pays the tax for whatever short period until we pass them through, quickly. When a lawyer is needed, the fund pays, not the common Bahamian taxpayer again. Madam Speaker, also instead of holding these migrants until they testify against who the mastermind is, there are ways that we can get them out of the country quicker. Let's have video deposition. We can record. Have it stored to present in court and send them out. We don't need to be housing them. We don't need to be paying for them. Video deposition is just as good. So again, that is more money that we would have been spending as taxpayers. Madam Speaker, we need an amendment that allows for video deposition, like I said. We must secure the conviction, but remove the burden of housing these people as soon as possible. Madam Speaker, the immunity clause, it must be conditional. Immunity should only be granted if the migrant cooperates and identifies the smuggler. And in closing, if he refuses to talk, if they refuse to protect, or if they want to protect the criminal, they lose immunity and are reported immediately. We are running, Madam Speaker, we're not running a charity, we are running a country, quid pro quo. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the smuggling of migrant bill, a bill is necessary, but not this bill. In this current form, Madam Speaker, I say it is too expensive. I'm happy that the outcry of the public at least got to the point where Section 11 is removed. And again, I continue to harp on that word, non-refoulement. If it is not written in our law and it's only open to interpretation, why include it in the law now? It don't need to be put there. Because in my view, even as a layman, you give it more teeth. I have the question, is it there? The answer was the interpretation of it is there. If the word is not there, if the word is not in our law now, we don't need to put it in the law now. The same way we interpreting, let us keep it that way. That's the point. If there's no need for it before, there should be no need for it now. For 52 years, the word didn't appear in our law. For 53 years, it didn't appear in our law. Why should it appear in our law now? The point, again, you didn't answer the point directly. Mr. Leader, you didn't answer the point directly. If the word is not there, take the word out. Let the interpretation remain the way it was. That is my point. Madam Speaker, like I said, you must pass a bill. We must strengthen our borders, which is extremely important for us. We must do that. But, Madam Speaker, I'm being disrupted now by someone who just said sorry. I think I need protection. I will not do this to the good member, and I will not call Sergeant Shaw's name. Oh. Madam Speaker, let us enshrine the principle that not only the smuggler pays, but also those being smuggled. Because we spoke to intention earlier, and if a person is paying to go to Miami and happened to land in the Bahamas because the smuggler messed up, they're free? I mean, come on.
No, they're not.
They shouldn't. They shouldn't be. But you now, the victim, as opposed to being a part of the criminal enterprise, you are also a criminal, and you should suffer to the full extent of the law. And I'm happy to hear now that they will. Madam Speaker,
It's an existing legislation.
Madam Speaker, Central Grand Bahamas is watching. The Bahamas is watching. Colleagues, it is our responsibility to get it right. It is our responsibility to get it right on behalf of the Bahamian people. All those who elected us to serve, we must serve them to their benefit, and for generations to come. Madam Speaker, we are watching, and like I said, there are certain amendments that must take place in this bill that will make it better for the Bahamas. Having said that, Chentugan Bahama rest.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the
Madam
Honorable Member for
Speaker, I
Freetown.
now move that the business of the House be suspended to 3:30 p.m. this afternoon.
Who's going to be? Fox Hill?
Fox Hill will be.
Okay.
At which time Fox Hill will.
That's okay. It's been moved and seconded that the business of this House be suspended until 3:30 p.m. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of this House stands suspended until 3:30 p.m. All right.